Yes.
How do these specs affect the sag that I should be shooting for? What is sag?
So sag is when you're sitting on the bike and all the equipment that you're going to be riding with.
Okay.
When you get on your bike and just the static weight of your body on the bike is going to compress the fork and the rear shock. That is basically the sag. So you would be adjusting the air pressure in your shocks to reduce or increase that sag amount. If you had very low air pressure in your shocks, then when you sat on the bike, they would compress a lot. And if you had really high air pressure, if they were overpressurized, then you sat on the bike, they would barely move. Every brand is a little bit different, but they're almost always very close to about 25%. Hey, let's say it's a cross-country race bike and you have 100 millimeters of rear travel and 100 millimeters of front travel. So 25% of that would be 25 millimeters. When you sit on the bike, you want the fork and the shock to compress 25% of that travel.
Okay.
And they have little O-rings on both the fork and the shock,
Yes.
or sometimes markers so you can see this.
Yep.
Basically, you're getting on the bike, and ideally, you want to have somebody hold you up. You actually want to bounce up and down a couple times because you
Yes.
want to make sure you've broken through any just what's called stiction in the system. And then sort of, I like people to sort of be in that kind of stand up ready position on the pedals.
I've seen you do this. You hold the front wheel
Yes.
and you have them
Yep.
stand over. Okay.
Right.
So in that loaded but not active, we'll call it position, it's 25%.
Percent, yes. Some brands may be 30%.
Okay.
Or, this is all a little bit of personal preference, but it's going to be in that range.
So her
In that
question,
range.
these specs don't affect the sag she should be shooting for. I mean, it's 25% of whatever it
Of
is.
whatever
you're
she
on.
has.
Yeah, exactly.
So where she had said her rear shock travel is 55 millimeters, that's when you're looking at that 25%, you're looking at that 25% of 55 millimeters.
That's where the little rubber band comes into play.
So in that case, you'd want the little rubber O-ring after you, so you'd weight the bike, you get on it, you set the O-ring against the shock body,
Yep.
right? And then you carefully, so you don't compress the shocks anymore,
Yeah.
get your feet on the ground and unweight the bike. And then you've got that gap now where
Yeah.
you can see how much the bike had compressed with you on it.
Okay.
So in 55 millimeters, what's 25% of that? 13, something like that. Yeah. The sag exists so that the shocks can uncompress
Yes.
when you unweight the bike. Think about it this way. When you're going in and out of, say, routes, the fork has to, and the shock and the rear end of the bike have to be able to go down into that depression. You can't just have compression only. The suspension needs to be dynamic up and down. And if you didn't have sag, it would feel horrible.